Hello everybody, today we're going to look at the games of Dennis Lasovic destroying Magnus Carlsen. Because how many times does Magnus Carlsen get destroyed? So, first game, Magnus goes for the setup with the bishop on b4. He takes, and because of this, Dennis gets a very big center, but Magnus Carlsen gets a bit more of development. So he puts pressure with the bishop on the center, and here he makes a mistake. Try to find the winning move. It's easy, but not that easy, because of course it's blitz chess. So the move is queen to a4, attacking the bishop, attacking the knight. But what happens if the bishop drops back? Because the knight isn't hanging anymore. Then we get to play the move d5, pinning the knight. And in a lot of these situations there is some type of b4 move trying to interrupt this pin. But here we can just take that with the queen and attack the bishop. So queen a4, bishop back, and d5 was winning, but Lasovic played move f4, going for a very big center. Now the game is very equal. They go for opposite side castling, which means there will be an attack. Oh, and this is just a warm-up game. In the next game, Lasovic will sacrifice 2 rooks. So wait for that. But first we're gonna look at this game, because this game was also really sick. He just developed the queen, putting a bit of pressure on the diagonal. The queen comes out here, and now the knight reroutes, because the knight also wants to go to the side where black's king is to attack the king. And here comes Magnus with his h-pawn, trying to knock on the door of the house of Lasovic's king. And here the first attacking move of Lasovic, the rook to the g file, h4, and here comes the rook attacking the queen. Queen has to leave, and now the knight comes back. A better move would have been already to strike in the center with e5, but he first places knight back. I get it, because he wasn't really doing anything over here, and here is a bit looking a bit of a defensive piece also. So Magnus plays his move. Lasovic of course shuts it, because if he opens up, the rook would be open and there would be very much attacking chances. But now in the future, a queen could be very dangerous in this area. But not right now, because there's a queen, of course. The knight reroutes, giving some defense. The bishop develops f6. The other rook comes. Lasovic should have invested earlier, and the pawn breaks in a position, but he's first getting all of his pieces ready. And now Magnus strikes. And this isn't the best, because not of what happened in the game, but because in this position you could close, the queen would be locked in jail, and then you could open up the position and really feast on the attack of the king. But Lasovic goes here, trying to fork, but there's an intermezzo, because if you take here, your bishop gets taken and you lose 2 pieces for a rook, which is not good. And also your center is bad, but now the center is restored. The knight comes, and I don't know why he didn't play this move. Maybe because the pawn in the middle would hang, and he's thinking, this is a strong knight and these are not strong rooks. So why give away my center if I can play d5? But now the queen comes back to defend this square, and now he's opening up. You cannot take because of checkmate, but you can take the bishop. Queen takes, and now you take the other pawn, but now the bishop takes, because again this is checkmate. The knight comes back, so now you threaten to take, with most likely with the knight, because then you also attack the queen and your pawn structure stays the same. So you just drop back, king goes to b8, and now the queen comes in. The knight goes to the center, but here comes Lasovic's knight, a very, very strong knight, putting a lot of pressure all around the position. Magnus takes the pawn in the center. He thinks Lesvik free pawn, really, but Lesvik sacrifices the knight. Why would he sacrifice the knight? If you take with the king, you'll just get checkmated with the rooks coming to this file and the bishop. And if you take with the queen, you sacrifice the bishop, and in this position Magnus Carlsen resigned. Why? Because if you take, the king can go nowhere, you have to block, and it ends in checkmate. And if you don't do anything, I will then take this pawn with a double check, and your king is just getting brutalized. But let's go to the second game. I'm sorry, I'm just having a cold. So let's go to the game where Lesvik played even more brilliant moves. So it opened with a Benoni, bit of a weird Benoni, but it goes on to be a normal Benoni, and just the typical moves. Of course, I say you should play the Benoni, so maybe this isn't the best game to show, because of course the Benoni gets destroyed with world's #1 playing the Benoni. But let's look. So first Magnus goes for this very obscure move, knight to h5. I don't really understand why he's playing that. I would play something like this, or just the rook to e1, knight to the middle. But let's see, the bishop comes to attack. He wants to trade the bishops, which I also think, why would you trade the bishops? Because the bishop is like, it's like your monster in position. I mean, this bishop is most of the time pretty bad, and these knights are just hanging around, but this bishop is always sniping the diagonal. So now the rook comes to e1, bishop drops back because he wants to open up the king. And now Magnus plays b3 because he wants maybe to develop the bishop the other way, putting pressure on the center. Knight is attacked, knight drops back. Now this knight comes in attacking the bishop, and the bishop takes for this knight because it had nowhere to go, because if you go here you're just blocking the rook, blocking the queen. The bishop is blocked by everything. And these squares are still going to be very weak. Now they are also very weak with this knight and this bishop, but the rook can take a pawn in the center. The bishop comes back, rook comes back, and here Magnus weakens a bit of the king, but it's useful because the king needs a bit of breathing room, because the bishop is gone and this knight is standing awkward. Lesvik just improves. The knight comes to the center, attacking the bishop. King has to move. You can move to the corner because of the fork. No, because of f4 and then the fork. So, and here Dennis actually makes a mistake, so the Benoni does pay off. Try to find the move on your own. It's not easy. It's bishop takes h3, and you might say that's logical because you will lose the queen. But here I like to say, what if this move gets played? How are you gonna solve it now? Because if you move the knight, the bishop gets taken, and there isn't the fork anymore. It's knight to g4. Why? Because of the take. We take this knight, and if the knight takes, we get back with the bishop. So that's important to remember. Not what happens in the game. Magnus just plays an improving move. Dennis blunders it again, and now Magnus sees it. Dennis doesn't take back, doesn't play f4, he just goes for it. On the other side of the board, this gets brilliant because of course the bishop, but not really. The rook takes, and now the bishop drops back, which is a mistake because of rook takes c5, sacrificing the rook. And here a fork, so you're gonna block with this rook, which is given a mistake because of Rook takes c5. So rook second c5 and then on e5. And after takes the winning move. Queen to g5. White king has no squares. This rook is pinned. So this will be checkmate. Only move to stop it. Let's go here, but now there's queen takes to e5. This is checkmate. And you can't stop it. There's no way to stop this checkmate. Such good games of Dennis Lesvik against the world #1. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Sacrifice your rooks. Play chess.